Hello and welcome to another Hellraiser blog. Today's Hellraiser blog we're going to cover Anthony Joshua against Dominic Breazeale. That's this Saturday at the O2 in London, and it's a fight that has attracted quite a bit of criticism to Matchroom and to AJ for their choice of opponent. Breazeale was the US Olympic representative, so he's a good class amateur. He's got a very good pro record, few I suppose dubious opponents in there, but he's got a record of 17 wins out of 17 with 15 by knockout. You're not going to, if you sign a guy up like that, US Olympic rep, even if he got beat in the first qualifier at the London Olympics, but America really doesn't now, the USA doesn't actually manufacture or doesn't produce that many top level amateurs. The way amateur boxing's gone with the scoring machine just doesn't suit their style. They all seem to fight, even in their amateurs seem to fight with a pro style, and they do fine in the professional ranks, but in the amateurs they've suffered because of that. So it's no big deal for me, an American that gets beat in the first round of the qualifiers in the Olympics, because I sort of almost expect it now, because they all want to stand and fight, whereas these guys that are sort of moving and scoring points and running away get the better of them at the highest elite level. So Brezeale is 15 knockouts out of 17. He is just rated in the top 15 of the IBF, which to me is very relevant, because look, people can criticise the choice of opponent. Bearing in mind he's the IBF champion, he has to fight someone in the top 15 in the IBF ratings. And if you go down that, you can go online, just Google IBF ratings, go down the list, you'll see that there's a load of people that I would much rather see, just as a neutral spectator, I would much rather see AJ against Brezeale than AJ against a lot of people that are on that list. I mean, you've got Eric Molina, Derek Chisora, Hughie Fury, Bermain Stiverne. I find this fight much more appealing than any of those fights. And I don't think that Brezeale was necessarily the easiest choice that they've got. This is a voluntary. So when you make a voluntary, you don't go looking to number 2, number 3. I mean, people that are thinking, oh, I'd have liked it to be David Haye or Klitschko or Fury. Or why would he do that in his first event? It's just being realistic. Boxing's a business, and there's just no way that he would have chosen that. And it wouldn't make. Then he would get criticism, and I'd be agreeing with it if they'd have made a fight like one of those next. Because I mean, just think of it from this for a second. He's only really boxed 2 live opponents, which were Dillian Whyte and Charles Martin. Out of those 2, Charles Martin, to begin with, you can eliminate him because he underperformed terribly. He really embarrassed himself. He just completely didn't get out of the starting blocks. He swallowed it, in my opinion, and that was no test to Joshua. The Dillian Whyte fight was a test to Joshua, and I can tell you, I was ringside for that fight with Dillian Whyte. I know both of them. I mean, Dillian Whyte's boxed on my shows before, so I know him. He's boxed on 3 of my shows, so I know him well. And Joshua, I've watched every fight since he turned pro, and I've even watched a lot of his amateur fights before then. I know him well. They come to box each other, and I thought this is a crazy fight to take, really, for both of them, because I thought if Dillian pops in one and does manage to stop him, completely derails the whole of Matchroom, and in fact I'd say Sky Sports boxing setup, and I seen that as a realistic, not I certainly had AJ as a favourite to win it, but I saw that as a risk of what could happen. So in that moment where Dillian had just hit AJ, and we saw that little wobble in his legs, and also there was 2 things. One, he was clearly hurt from the punch. On top of that, his stamina. Yeah, there's the 2 question marks that I think now I've got about AJ. Following that, the Dillian Whyte fight, obviously not the Charles Martin one. One that AJ's stamina looked questionable in that fight. Not his heart, because he dug deep and he came back and he actually stepped up to the mark and he did the job. He knocked Dillian White completely bandy, and you know, you have to. I take my hat off to that. Also, his stamina. AJ looked like he was gasping for breath. There's no. I didn't have a problem with him actually gasping for breath, because he was in with a genuine threat. He was in with a guy that was there to take his head off. Hadn't just come for the money at all. Probably saw AJ as a stepping stone from where he was to going up to somewhere, you know, to bigger things. Obviously, he wrongly assessed that side of it, because AJ really used him as a stepping stone. You know, it was a fight got everyone watching it, and probably the first fight everyone got really excited about Joshua in the pros. So in a way, the gamble paid off for them. You know, they got the knockout win, and everyone wanted to see that fight because Dillian White had beat him in the amateurs. If I was the manager of Dillian White, I wouldn't have taken it then. I would have waited. I would have thought, okay, there's a very strong chance that, you know, the amount of money and backing that Joshua's got behind him, he's probably going to get to the world title, and we beat him in the amateurs, and that would have, and it would have rankled with Joshua. That I think that would have made the fight, and Dillian could have got a whopping payday for that, especially if he'd have got himself pushed up the ratings a little bit, maybe even made to eventually to a sort of mandatory spot, or a sort of near mandatory. If the mandatory for whatever reason wasn't available to box Joshua, and Dillian then could have been made mandatory, and like I say, he could have earned himself a whopping payday there. But anyway, back to this fight, because those are points I think that are both relevant in this. One thing that we do know about Dominic Breazeale, he can definitely punch. He's not a huge one-punch knockout artist, but he's a more, I'd say, like a guy that comes forward looking to. He's got sort of bad intentions in his punches, and that's a big thing. You know, he's not just poking and prodding his punches out. A couple of times when he's been tired, he's looked like the quality of his punches went down a little bit, but generally I'd say, you know, he's a hurtful puncher, and he's a guy that comes looking to do damage. He doesn't come looking to win on points. Every fight I've seen him, he's always had that sort of bad intentions in his fists, and he looks like he wants to do damage. He's down the bottom of the IBF rating, so obviously that's probably why they you know, you start looking at number 15, 14, 13 until you find one that's available. That's a problem. That's like people criticising have to realise, well, they need to fight one of the top 15, and some of those are signed with other promoters. They're not interested in making the fight. Others are not available. Some are injured. There's all different reasons. So they've done well. They got this Brezeale guy. He's got a great record. He's American. AJ's just signed a deal with Showtime. Perfect. You know, they got a guy who everyone in America now is going to watch this fight because they know Brezeale. He's well known to American fight fans. He boxed in the Olympics. He was a national champion. He's been built up on a high-profile sort of series of promotions in the US, and I think they'll be getting excited about this. I think the betting odds, I've seen Brezeale at like 20-1, and there's just no way that he should be 20-1 for this. Now, this is two heavyweights. They're both good class fighters. Brezeale, pro boxing, I think, actually does suit him better than amateurs, and I think you'll see a better performance from him certainly than the last time he was in London in the Olympics. And the coverage that he will get, if he did manage to pull this off, he'll become a worldwide star. So he's got every motive here not to come and sit down. He's been in our gym in Limehouse this week, actually preparing, and I've had the chance to speak to him and to watch him train, and he is absolutely not just coming for the money. I can say that. I could gauge right away. You know, this guy's very focused. He had a guy from Al Heyman with him in the gym, and I know that they're obviously seeing this as I'm sure there'll be options. They'd have had to sign some options, but at the same time, bearing in mind that it's quite difficult to find someone who fits what you're looking for, like the IBF rating, the TV you want, that is available, that's not injured, all these things, that's reasonable at the negotiating table, that they probably would have done themselves a deal where there's a lot of flexibility in it, I'd have thought. if Al Heyman's involved, because Brezeale, you know, he's clearly a bright guy. He's going to want to maximise this, and I think he's coming to win. Now, I've studied Brezeale from since the Olympics when he boxed. I've never actually had anyone that I managed boxing, but the two fights really that stand out to me. One is against a guy called Nagy Aguilera. Now, Nagy Aguilera, if you've never heard of him or you haven't come across him before, he's an American journeyman. I would say he's a very good class journeyman. He's not a guy that just comes, picks up his money and goes home. He comes to try and win. Okay, he's like a journeyman who fights to win all the time. Why I think this fight was significant, different reasons actually. Firstly, he caused Brezeale a lot of problems, certainly in the second half of the fight. And also, he caught... He found Brezeale repeatedly with the jab throughout the whole fight. Now, this is a guy... Aguilera is about 6'2", 6'3", something like that. If he can find Dominic Breazeale with the jab repeatedly and the right hand, even more worrying, could find him with the right hand, then Anthony Joshua's definitely going to hit him, because Joshua's taller, longer, faster, more accurate. He's a better class boxer, and he's going to find Brezeale. He's going to hit him, and Joshua, as we know, is a huge puncher. He's a monstrous puncher. If he catches him in the first couple of rounds, it only takes one shot. That will be the end of the story. And Brezeale isn't going to come and... I don't think he's going to move. I don't think he's going to prove too fiddly. I think there's two ways he could approach the fight. One is to try and outbox Joshua. That's not going to happen. So I don't think he's going to do that. If he comes looking for Joshua, trying to cut the ring off, close the space down, find him with big shots early, he'd probably still get beat, but I think he's got a bigger chance of winning, and for that reason